So I was back in Japan, but now I was going to head to where I was born, to Hobart in Tasmania, and then down to the southwest, a mystical place for me because my dad spent a lot of time down there shooting photos, and I just went into one side once and there was a sign saying Port Davey, and it was right off into the depths of it from that side, from South Cape Rivulet it's called. But I would be going in from the other side to what's known as Lake Pedder. It was flooded as part of a damming project for hydroelectricity, but it used to be this beautiful natural lake with a huge beach that they say you could land a jumbo on there. This massive beach that people used to go to down in the southwest of Tasmania. And so I was heading there. I went to there, and then my stepmother dropped me off in this remote location, and it was a decent day, but we were heading into winter as well. So I knew that, and I purposely went at that time as well because I knew there'd be a lot of water at least, and in the summer there's lots of snakes around as well. They don't really faze me at all, but I just wanted to be in the weather, and I had that time off as well. It was time I could go, but I wanted to experience being just inside the weather, powerful weather, because I knew that at some point rains would come, but it was a nice day. So anyway, I started walking from there and down into the Southwest National Park, and it was a nice day. But then it started to rain later on in the day, and I was carrying about 30 kilograms, and I hadn't done that for a while. I had about 17 kilograms of food, but I didn't have any source of fire either. I just had these muesli bars that we made up back at home with my stepmother and her sister. We made them up with chia seeds and honey and cacao and everything. And I also had wheatgrass powder, some garlic, salt, which would come in handy later, chocolate, different types of chocolate, some dark chocolate as well, black jelly beans, and a few other things like that. What else did I have? Actual cacao powder as well, and maca powder. I had some of that too. So just these nutritious things, hopefully, that would sustain me and I wouldn't get sick of eating these muesli bars. But the idea was to not spend time cooking, going in and out of a tent in the potential cold weather and stuff, just to focus on the walk. And then I would have all my food inside. I wouldn't need to cook it or anything, wouldn't need to worry about washing up or keeping things hygienic either, because they were all wrapped individually as well, so I could just eat them safely and not expend any extra energy. Just get to my campsite, set up my tent, have my nice dry sleeping bag and sit inside, eat my food at my leisure, and then have enough time to rest and then go the next day. That was the plan anyway, the basic plan. And so started the walk down there, and then it started to rain, and I had a torch as well. I had a torch with a lot of batteries, and it was quite powerful. And so the first night I just camped out in the open by the side of the track. But I arrived, and I was walking in the dark, and it was raining, but my torch was so good that I could see. It really put out a lot of light, and I could see yabbies as well that appeared on the track and stuff. And the water was a beautiful colour too, because it's stained by tannins in the bark of the trees, even there off the side of the track. And so it was this golden colour that was reflecting in the light of the torch. But I decided at one point to make camp and just put the tent just to the side of the track. And after I went back, I found out that the winds were blowing at about 140 or 160 k's an hour, and I actually was walking into the worst weather in 60 years, similar to when I did the walk in Japan for some reason. And I found out later that that was on the news and everything, that we were getting this terrible weather down there when I was down there. But anyway, I went to set up my tent, and it was a really good system as well, because you could put up the fly first, so that's the outer of the tent that's waterproof, and then you could put the inner part of the tent up. So I could put up the fly, get under there, and I was already a bit cold by then as well. And I just noticed the difference. There was a huge difference in temperature once I got inside. I started to warm up, and my body was shaking, not so much from the cold, but just from the strain of using the pack. And when I went to put down the pack, then I felt all my muscles go as well. Because they were under so much strain, kind of cramping and stuff. Anyway, I set up my tent and tried to get a bit of sleep and stuff, but the tent was flapping the whole night, and that's okay because I don't need much sleep anyway. But I had plenty of time, and because it was basically winter, then there wasn't much light either. So when I woke up in the morning, I could only leave at 7 or so, I think. So I spent the night listening to the tent getting blown around in these really powerful winds, and it was good to know that the tent was could stand up to that. It was good to find that out on the first night, really. And it came with these pegs that were about this big, these aluminium things, but I used my dad's ones, which were big plastic ones, about this big, so I could jam them into the ground, and then I knew the tent wasn't going anywhere, and so I felt safe in that respect. But in the end, you're just relying on these thin pieces of material to keep you safe, but they did, and that's why it's so important to try and get the best equipment possible, really, because your life really depends on it. Anyway, took off early the next morning and started walking along, and just through the rain, pure rain, wasn't too powerful, and I was in good spirits and stuff, and I had a very thick polar fleece jacket or Polartec, whatever you want to call it, and also a waterproof Gore-Tex as well, with a front pocket. It was a kayaking one, which I liked, like a kangaroo pocket, so I could shove snacks in there and other things. And I was shooting photos as well with a medium format camera this time, so quite a large camera. And that, it would have been, in hindsight, it would have been great to have a GoPro or something, because I could have just had that on all the time, and then I could have made a really amazing film because of what I was about to encounter. So anyway, I got to a river called Crossing River, and that's quite dangerous because it is. I looked at the map, and there must be 30 different sources that feed into it, so it can rise and fall very quickly when it rains, and it's not a river to just cross at any time, because you have to ford across it, you have to walk across it, and that's what I would be doing on this walk. And we're talking about 4 degree water, 4 degrees Celsius, so close to freezing, but my body was already used to that anyway, so it was okay. But I got close to the Crossing River, and it was all flooded. It was already flooded out beyond where the normal river would run, and there was a forest as well. And I spent 2 hours going 50 meters with this pack on, just trying to pull myself through these trees, and the water was almost up to my waist sometimes, and trying not to get my jacket wet either. But I was just forcing myself through, and then eventually I got close to the banks of the river, and there were parts of it that were flooded and stuff. So I set up the tent, and it was getting dark, starting to get dark by then. And then the campsite started to flood, and I thought I have to move my tent. And I was walking around, and then I put it in another place, I think, and that started to flood as well. The water just started to come up onto this, hardly a patch of land. It was, half submerged, really. And then I had to go right next to the river on a high bank, right next to it, with it rushing past, blasting past, because it was the only place that wasn't getting flooded. But it was right next to the river as well, so it was quite dangerous. But at least it was solid and high ground. But above me, there was a eucalyptus tree, because fires had been through there the year before, and this was a half-burnt tree, and in the wind it was going like this above my tent, threatening to fall on me, and it would just kill me if it fell down. So I had to deal with that psychologically and just forget about it, really. So I set up my tent there, and that seemed to be dry ground at least, so I could actually not worry too much. I did stick my head out multiple times just checking, you know, how far the water was going to come up, because it was still coming up, but it stopped. It always stopped before it got to my tent. And the tent has a bucket bottom as well, so even if it came up, then it wouldn't flood it still. But this is the waters rushing past, and the winds were absolutely incredible. They sounded like fighter jets. I'd never heard a sound like that, the wind make a sound like that up in the sky. It wasn't the trees, because I've heard it rushing through the trees, but it was up in the sky, this incredible sound of, you know, 30 jets or something flying above. And I don't know, it must have been even more powerful up there. It could have been 200 k's an hour up there, but really powerful winds and rain and everything. And so I would be there for 6 days, and the river's only about, probably not even 10 metres wide, but I could hear boulders thundering down the river as well. So if I tried to cross it then, I would have died, 100%. I would have got taken down the river and just drowned. And you have this, I had these images of me jumping across, or using a big log or a stick or something to almost pole vault across. I was thinking of ways of trying to get across there, but the reality is, once you enter there, then you'll just get taken away. It would be way too dangerous. So I tracked up and down the river looking for, in the following days, looking for a way to cross, and there was just too much water, really. And I ended up putting sticks as markers to mark when the water would be going up and down, and it was changing by 2 meters at a time. But the rain continued; it just kept on coming, and I was measuring the speed of the water as well to see, you know, if I could possibly get across without getting dragged away, and listening for the rocks as well. But it was still too fast, and I was measuring the speed, and it continued to flow pretty quickly. There were times when the rain stopped and it started to go down, but then the rain just started up again, and it was again too dangerous to cross. And I did, at one stage, I packed up everything. I thought, I'm going.